Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk. This is Laughingboy. I'm the guy that shows up at all of the TRG meetups, and everyone goes, "I don't know who you are."
Who are you?
True story. Thank you for that. So this is another edition of our Let's Talk More series, where we do a little bit of a deep dive into specific Let's Plays that people have finished, and kind of talk a little bit more, do some catch up. Just overall getting to know a little bit more, catching up.
Hey.
So part of this is probably going to get cut out because I'm very good at not doing exposition very well. But in this edition, we've brought back MasaeAnela. Hello.
Hello. I'm the one that just picks on you every time I come here. I don't know why you keep inviting me back. I'm just going to pick on you more.
Because we actually just it's a back and forth, really. We do like to pick on each other a lot, but that's why I bring you back. Because for some reason I crave the abuse.
I was going to say challenge, but okay.
Yes, you challenge me.
Yes.
Can I get through these without crying? We're going to talk a little bit more about the recently completed Okami HD Let's Play that you did. And I thought this was a good opportunity to bring up because I did a blind LP of it a couple of years ago, and so when I saw you pick this up, I was like, okay, well now it'll be interesting to see somebody doing it the correct way.
Correct, quote unquote.
Look, I played 90% of the game using a regular PS3 controller, and then for the last boss rush, I played using the Move controller because I thought it'd be funny.
Oh no.
You can't do half the commands using the Move controller. It doesn't work.
Oh no. That's not good.
So anyway.
I don't know why you do that.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about...
Congratulations. I'm sorry.
So we're going to talk a little bit about why this became your Let's Play of choice. A little bit about the recording, editing, and then just sort of some fun extra things that happened throughout the course of your Let's Play.
Okay.
So first off, what compelled you to pick Okami as that Let's Play, your next Let's Play? Did you make the decision before the Switch version came out? Was its release on the Switch what made you decide to play it? What was the impetus for this?
I've actually been meaning to do Okami for years. For a really long time. I just really wanted to because it's a pretty special game to me. I've always loved it. It's one definitely high up there on my list of games that I just love to play, and it has it touches my heart in ways that a lot of other games don't. So I've always wanted to do it, and I was just kind of sitting on it because I just wanted to do it justice, and I wanted to do it right, and I wanted to make it a good experience and show everything in the game that made me love it in the first place. When I first decided to actually go for it, the Switch wasn't a release. The Switch version wasn't out yet. But at that point, it was still a really loose thing. I was just kind of yeah, I want to do Okami sometime. That sounds like a lot of work. Maybe later. It was just a perpetual that. It's just yeah, Okami, that's a lot of work. Never mind. So I probably did that for a couple of years.
Well, I guess thinking about it, it is very much a Zelda-like. I think a lot of people kind of like to equate it to sort of a Twilight Princess-esque game because obviously you play as a wolf for 100% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely has a lot of parallels, but to me there's a lot more collectibles in a lot weirder places, a lot of different types of collectibles, because you have the fish, you have the actual treasures, you have the items and the animals. I'm just this is a lot of stuff.
So really it just became about the collectibles and all of the extra things that you can do. I would agree that I think that in terms of a Zelda clone, it has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Because the game itself isn't, story-wise, isn't that long, really.
Yeah, it's not. And arguably, I feel like the game is more enjoyable if you don't do everything. Because there were just a lot of long stretches where all I was doing was just running around and talking to people and doing the quest. And it's the first time I've ever done that. I've never done that before. When I first played Okami, I just went straight through. And I did some extra things, but you know how that is.
Well, and a lot of it seems pretty grindy in terms of getting money in order to do things, buy things. Getting stray beads becomes a problem because I think there's quite a few of them that are just totally missable.
Yep. Well, no, none of the stray beads are missable.
None of them?
None of them.
I had heard going through our playthrough that some of them were, or at least like one or two of them were like, oh, if you just don't do it during this point in time, then...
No, I think I know what you're thinking about, and that's like midway through there's a dungeon that you can go into, and then you get kicked out. A lot of people assume that you can't re-enter the dungeon after that point, but you can, as long as you fulfill like the way to get in there.
Okay, that would make more sense.
Yeah, and like I got a lot of comments about that too. They're like, "You're gonna miss a stray bead. Make sure you get this missable stray bead." And I'm like, "No, you can go back. It's okay."
I should try to read the comment section more often because I probably have like 15 more questions here. So the game has a lot of ports and re-releases, and I know that you wound up playing this on the Switch, but especially since this was something that you were holding on to for quite some time, did it change? Like, which port did you feel was the most beneficial for you? And then why did you wind up landing on the Switch?
I landed on the Switch because I could play it on the fly, for one. Like, I could just play through the game on my own time and take notes and do all of that stuff just not in my house if I had to. I could just be out and about, take notes, play through the game. I was basically playing Okami all of the time and testing things and, like, you know, making sure I knew where everything was before I started recording, etc., etc. But I think the biggest thing was probably the fact that you can use the motion controls for with the Joy-Con, and it works pretty good too. I hear a lot of flack for the motion controls and like drawing being finicky, which it is. I wouldn't defend it, but it's not. In my experience, it really wasn't that bad. It had some moments where I was just like, please just work, but nothing game breaking. It was nothing that I couldn't handle, and all it took was like trying to redraw it maybe another time or two, and then it would be fine. But I thought that was a lot better than trying to awkwardly draw circles and really precise things with an analog stick, you know?
Well, it just becomes more of a headache. I got a lot of jokes at my expense for trying to do the same thing. Apparently, I could not draw circles to save my life with the analog stick.
Dude. Yeah. No, it's really hard with the analog stick. I tried it for like the first episode with the Pro controller, and I was just like, this is miserable. I can't do this. So I just went back to the Joy-Con, and I was happy. But other than that, I almost went for the PC version, if only because the PC version is available in 4K. But
yes.
Also, that would have required buying another capture card because the Elgato that I have does not support that. And so I was like, you know what? I don't think anyone would even watch it in 4K at this point. It's fine. 1080p will get the job done. No one will care. Right.
I think the PS4 version might also be in 4K, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And again, you'd still need that newer card.
I would still need that new card. And in which case, I'm just like, that would be a lot of money to sink into this.
Well, don't get me started about the render times.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. So that would be a new capture card and probably another hard drive that I would have to... And not to mention all the time, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a new graphics card to help with not setting your computer on fire.
Pretty much. So it was just too much. So I was like, you know what? The Switch version is fine.
Got it. What was your thought process in creating that Chibi Masai outfit, and were there any other ideas for her design that you had?
Yeah, actually. I since I've been working on this for so long and like had the idea for it so long, I already had a general look in mind that I wanted her to have. And I already had a direction that I had banked for like the last several years. But I almost went for an Isun costume instead. Like with a little bug hat and like a little purple shirt and whatever. I almost did that, but the only reason why I didn't was because, well, there were two reasons. One, because I thought little wolf Chibi Masai would be cuter. I mean, a little bit cuter than an Isun costume, and also you don't actually see Isun until like, you know, later.
Midway through.
Yeah, so I'm like, that would not be ideal I
mean,
that early in the game, so...
Chibi Masai wearing Isun's outfit is a little bit on the nose, too, when you think about it.
I know, that's why I wanted to do it. Thematically, it's perfect. Thematically, right. Like, she's my little helper, and she's really obnoxious a lot of the time, etc., etc. You know, it was actually perfect. But I went with cute factor and possibly not spoiler factor.
That's fair. Yeah, especially the spoiler factor of, I mean, if half the people are kind of wondering what that person even looks like, and then you get the reveal, it just starts to make more sense.
Yeah. Exactly.
So going into some of the stuff that a lot of my questions of the Let's Play as it was being released. First off, dude, what's with all the pee and butthole stuff? Okay, so there were like at least 3 or 4 thumbnails where I think I even added a comment where I was just like, okay, choice thumbnail because we can see her butthole.
Okay, the thumbnails weren't on purpose. I swear, it was just the only whenever it had something to do with her butthole in the thumbnail, except for maybe one. All right, maybe one was on purpose because I thought it was funny, but the rest, it's just like, there aren't a whole lot of interesting angles that work in a thumbnail, especially when I need it to be off to a specific side. Because I have Chibi Masai in my thumbnails, and I also have the number in my thumbnails, right? So that's like 2 corners taken up. So I need everything to be like focused on like the bottom center. And what do you get in the bottom center? It's a butthole.
On the bottom center. What is the center of the bottom?
Exactly. It's a butthole. So I just got really unlucky. So like a lot of the interesting shots just so happened had her butthole in it. It wasn't on purpose. I'm sorry. That's just how the game was.
Okay.
Fault.
That's fine. But then what about all the peeing and pooping? Like, it got to the point where you were like obsessed.
What other game lets you pee and poop on people? What other game lets you do that? None. I had to take advantage of it, okay?
I mean, I wouldn't say none.
What's another game that lets you pee and poop on your enemies?
Well, if you're really good at Death Stranding.
Oh, no. Actually?
You can at least pee, and then you throw piss at your enemies.
This is Death Stranding, you said?
Did you not know about that?
No, I don't. What the heck?
Yeah. So there's a whole mechanic where obviously you can pee because if you drink too much Monster Energy drink, then obviously you have to pee. But you can take your urine and create bombs out of them.
Oh my god.
Because apparently you specifically are very special and your DNA can be used to, I think, distance yourself from the BTs. Don't get me started on what half of this shit means, but basically you can throw piss bombs. And I think you can also throw poop bombs.
Oh my god. You know, I wasn't expecting you to come up with an answer quite that fast.
I wasn't either. And then I thought about Death Stranding.
Good job. Well,
Thank you.
There are very few games that you can pee and poop on people.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that Death Stranding is now on your LP radar.
I mean, hey, I'm always looking for new things, you know?
a very specific clientele. Look, I just don't want to have to Google search MasaeAnela P compilation for this. So.
No.
Is that a Googleable term?
No, do not. Oh my god.
If everyone in chat can just constantly Google search it so that it's like the second thing you see when you type in her name.
Oh my god. Dude, actually no, I kind of wonder how many times I had Ami pee on things in that game though.
Well, ask your fans to make a pee compilation. And then I will tell them to Google search it so that it comes up top billing. This is called teamwork.
My god.
Anyway, one of the things that I really liked about your LP was that you frequently took the time to make art using the ink brush during episodes, especially when you would open up a new episode and there was an ink drawing. And it was interesting that you talk about how frustrating or how difficult the learning curve was for the ink brush, because it seemed like you really gained control of it. So was this something that was very difficult to do, or did you kind of naturally take to this?
I mean, being an artist kind of helps. It does help a little bit, but it was really hard. It was actually really difficult because, for one, when you use a Joy-Con, it's not meant for like long drawing sessions. So like eventually, if I spent too long drawing it, I would actually be pointing sidewards towards like the wall to point at the TV, because it's only meant to be used in like short bursts, right? So like eventually I would just be like off to the side and drawing on the wall and trying to make it work that way. And something else that isn't very apparent with watching it is that you have a very limited ink supply.
That was one of the things I was thinking about.
Yeah, so you really can't just like do it willy-nilly, because you'll run out of ink, and then you don't even just run out of ink and it stops. It cancels the whole thing. So you'll just lose everything. So I had to like be absolutely sure that I left that little itty bitty dot of ink in my ink pot. Otherwise, I would just have to start over. It was really frustrating, but it was fun. It was a challenge.
And then finally, one of the things that I was actually really surprised to see was that you did a cover of Reset, which was the song used in the credits for the original, with FamilyJules. So how did this come about? And then what was the experience like in just professionally recording a track like that?
Okay, so yeah, it was really weird. Okay, one, I mentioned that it was taking me years to actually do Okami, right? Like, I had been thinking about it for forever, and I really wanted to do it justice, etc., etc. And one of the big hurdles was actually Reset. Reset itself was a hurdle, because you can't upload that on YouTube without getting in trouble. It's just one of those songs that's really finicky. It's along the same lines as like Simple and Clean in Kingdom Hearts, where just like so many people get nailed for it. So it was one of those things where I desperately wanted to have it as a part of the series and end off the series on Reset, because that's the only way to end the game, you know. And it's so pretty, and it's just a nice way to wrap everything up. And it was really important to me to have it in there somehow. But there wasn't really any covers that I particularly liked enough to like be like, hey, let me use it. I was kind of keeping an eye out, and I was even like thinking about like maybe commissioning someone to do a Reset, but also I don't know. It was just really finicky, and I wasn't sure how I was gonna handle it. And then one day, Jules and Adriana were visiting, and we were just hanging out, and I remember Jules was just like, hey, we should do a cover. I was like, what? Excuse me? What? Excuse me? So we got to talking about it, and he's like, yeah, if you can think of anything that you really want to do, let me know. And we can do it, because the way that he put it back then was that he kind of wanted me to see what it would sound like if I actually had my voice professionally like mixed into an actual song, and what it would sound like, because I'm super skittish about my voice. Gee, I don't think anyone could ever tell. I'm very skittish about my voice, but he basically like was very nice about it, and was really, really kind, and was like, hey, so let me just show you what it would sound like, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, there's this one song in Okami. It's a really nice song.
You're basically being handed the opportunity to get this work done.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. He didn't even know, but that was on the back burner for me for like forever. And he just propped up with this perfect opportunity to just like do it and get it done. And then at that was actually the point where I was like, all right, I'm doing Okami. This is it.
So you actually had the song figured out before you started the Let's Play?
Yes.
Wow.
It wasn't done before the Let's Play. I think, actually, how did that timeline work? I think I had recorded it before the Let's Play started, but it wasn't mixed until like the week before it ended.
Oof.
Because I had to fly over to their house to actually record it, right? So we just did it at some point down the line when I was visiting.
Gotcha. That's what I had assumed, because I think the recording studio looked like his usual setup.
Yeah. So I was visiting, and he was like, hey, let's do it. And I'm like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. So that's the story. It's not super interesting, but that's how that came to be.
I mean, as somebody who also wants to like, that's like a bucket list item for me, is to like do a song and have it perfectionly mixed, even if it's like a cover. Hint, hint. But if it's super interesting to me, because I don't know how that all works. I think that a lot of people listening to this are probably curious to understand how that all works. So just kind of getting a little bit of background information, like I had to ask about it, just because it is something that I'm very interested in. And so I just kind of hopefully assume that a lot of people watching this would be interested to know how it all works.
Yeah, like it was a really interesting experience, because I don't have any experience with that. Like, this was my first time even getting a peek into what they do, because I have a lot of musician friends at this point. I don't know how that happened, but it did. So here I am surrounded by musicians, and I'm just kind of like peeking over the fence, and I'm like, hey, how you do that? You know? That's me. I'm like the next door neighbor that's always peeking over the fence. But it was really cool. Basically, like, they have this really kick-ass studio. It's really, really awesome and super well put together. And they basically sat me down and just have me run through the song. I had to like, I wasn't actually expecting to do it right the day that we did it, actually. So it caught me by surprise, and I wasn't practiced. So I was just like, okay, I guess let's do this, sure. And so,
you can always re-record.
Yeah, that's basically what they told me, actually. They were like, don't worry about it, we'll walk you through it. Adriana was an angel for once in her life, and she walked me through it, and she coached me a little bit and was like, hey, so this is how you do it. I'll stay here if you want, and coach you through for a while. And she was actually great. She helped me through like the first half of the song, and she was like, okay, I think you got it. And then she left me to my own work.
She like let go of you while you were on like the 2-wheel bike.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. She let me pedal by myself. And then so I just worked at it. Like, the software was a little bit weird to me. I have no idea. Like, it wasn't my rig, so They basically just pointed at buttons for me to press. They pointed at the buttons.
Noticed? You know, the one thing I noticed?
What's that?
You didn't shake your knee. No knee shake.
Okay, but also that of course my knee's not gonna shake. That was like, I knew that there was a camera. I didn't have the table in front of me to hide my knees.
Wait, so you can control your tick? That's not how a tick works. So you've just been doing this the whole time for fun?
I didn't say that it was a tick. I said that my knees just shake when I'm nervous sometimes.
That's a tick.
Is that? No.
That's called a nervous tick.
Oh, I've never described it that way. But also, that's actually because the recording portion of it was done separately. The video part is like done as like a shot by shot thing.
Oh,
so
okay.
The recording happens elsewhere, and then you kind of go through your takes, and then this was actually really funny because after I finished the recording, they were like, Jules. I remember Jules asked me like, "Hey, are you comfortable being on video?" I'm like, "What?"
So just adding more stuff on.
Because up until that point, I honestly was expecting it to be just like this really minor, really small, like slap it together. Here you go, you did it. I was not expecting him to go all out on it, and I wasn't expecting it to actually end up on his channel at all. Period whatsoever. That all got thrown on me, and I was very excited when I found out, but I just wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
So.
But it all came together really well.
Yay! Thank you. It was really funny because I had the lyrics up when I was actually recording it because it's all in Japanese. I chose a winner of a song to do for my first actual cover. A hard song in Japanese, a language I don't speak. But
first time karaoke for everyone.
But after recording it, Jules basically was like, "So hey, are you ready to record the video?" And turns out I had to actually know the lyrics offhand to do the video because I can't just like look at my phone while recording a video.
Well, I mean,
I didn't know, and I was just like, "Wait, do I actually have to know the lyrics for this?" And they're like, "Yeah."
What do you mean you didn't?
No. So it was really funny. But it would turn out okay in the end because I had like recorded it so many times at that point that I actually had it more or less memorized.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. I'm just really, really, really thankful that they helped me and did that for me, and I'm just like, I'm still jazzed.
Right?
I'm still jazzed.
Well, it's not something you had to do, right? Like, This isn't something that you could have just recorded a Let's Play. You could have done what you did and just called it a day. But I think this, along with a lot of the extra editing that you've done with your voiceovers and stuff that we'll get to in a second, really add value to it. Something
thanks.
something that I think about a lot, and I don't remember if I've already said this in a previous episode, because I haven't gotten to those yet in editing as of this recording, but it's going that extra mile. The thing that I like to ask myself a lot is like, and not to sound rude, but like, what's the point? When I record something, when I have a video idea, I have to ask myself a lot, like, why? What is the point? What's going to make somebody value what I'm doing more so or as equally as what somebody else is doing? Anybody can make a Let's Play, right? Well, most people can make a Let's Play. It's really more of a monetary barrier than anything. But what is it that you're going to put to the table? What is it that you're going to do? Why should people watch yours over anybody else's? And I think among a lot of the people that I interview, you do a lot of that. You add a lot of value to it. A lot of people may not get the same experience that you can provide. So I think this, along with some of the other stuff that we'll go into additionally, is kind of what makes this worthwhile and why I wanted to do this interview in the first place.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
So going into editing, there are a lot of things like we talked about the recording of this cover, but then you also do a lot of kind of like voice acting, like you do speak the dialogue. There's some acting involved, but especially when you started doing the Orochi voice, you started adding in some editing and some of the vocal distortions. So I can assume that you did the Orochi voice and then added some editing. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was hard. That was kind of hard. So basically the distortions were really kind of a last minute thing. I wasn't intending to make it go as all in as I did. My initial thought about it was basically just, you know what? Orochi looks real stupid with my voice coming out of him because I have a girl voice. So Orochi plus girl voice is just kind of like, But it was also hitting a sweet spot because I didn't want to go. It was one of those things where it was, how do I make it sound convincing without it really sticking out to the point of sounding dumb? Does that make sense?
Like overdoing it?
Yeah, because I one of the struggles that I have with what I do is just like, when do I push through and just go all in, and when do I just play it off for jokes and just, like, you know, when I do stupid voices for certain characters, I'm just, hello, I'm doing a stupid voice. When do I keep doing that through the whole dialogue and then just start laughing halfway through and be like, okay, sorry, that's annoying, I'll stop.
Right.
Because I enjoy doing the voice acting, and for me, it's hard to tell when I'm hitting a good stride, and I can't really tell when it's starting to get annoying. But specifically for Orochi and like some of the other bosses, it was just like, it felt really wanting if I didn't do something.
How is it you have come back after perishing and turning into stone?
So I have some previous experience, especially like, I guess this was another reason why I want to do this interview, because I can like talk about my own experience with this. Not that anybody really wanted to hear it.
I want to.
Thank you for pitying me. So when we did this Let's Play, I wanted to kind of do some similar stuff. I wanted to sort of change my own voice to kind of practice with like voice acting. Not that it was something I seriously wanted to get into, but it's like fun to do it.
Yeah.
And so for Isun, because he reminded me so much of Myoga from Inuyasha, I started trying to do the Myoga voice, and let me see if I can, because he kind of sounds a little bit like this, and he sounds a little bit like Secret Squirrel. But eventually, as the Let's Play kept going, it started getting worse and worse to the point where I started sounding like this. One of my friends will never listen. He doesn't want to deal with Isun anymore because he can't hear it the same way ever again. Because he's had to deal with my voice throughout the entire Let's Play.
That's hilarious. That's really funny.
And I just played it up for laughs. I knew it was getting annoying. And if you're recording it for like 2 hours, that's a voice you cannot do for very long.
Right, yeah.
So it got really raspy. On top of that, I did also try to do a distorted voice for Orochi, at least 1 or 2 lines, because it was like during the second fight. And I had the idea to just kind of throw it in there.
I shall claim my 100th sacrifice and become God of the Underworld.
Hate to break it to you, that doesn't happen.
So when I saw that you had done it from the get-go, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I had the same idea. It did take a long time to kind of figure it out. I think I added like multiple layers of audio, just the same voice, and then I kind of like put them at different points in the timeline so that it just sounded
No, that's
a little
exactly
bit
what
more
I
echoey.
did. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I did that, and then Orochi was actually one of the simpler ones that I did. I think he actually was the simplest because after a while when I got to some of the other bosses, it actually took me like hours to get right, which was terrible. But Orochi specifically was just like I kind of pushed one of the tracks back by like 2 frames, and then I pitch shifted some of it, and I think I might have added some reverb on one of the tracks. I'm not sure. I can't remember all of the effects that I used because there were several stacked on top of each other. But it was just a lot of experimentation and a lot of like trying to line it up in such a way that it sounded deep and menacing, and you couldn't tell that it was a girl voice making it.
It's hard to escape. Like, I tried to do it where you couldn't tell it was my voice anymore.
Yeah.
But it's almost impossible, especially when you know your own voice so well that, like, you still hear it no matter how much distortion you do.
Exactly.
What about some of the other bosses? What kind of other editing techniques did you do there?
Oh, man. Dude, I think there were... Blight was also somewhat simple. He was kind of okay. I think the 2 that I was most proud of, the one that really made me feel like I was like, yeah, I'm doing something pretty cool here, was the Spider Queen.
Are you that dog that has been sniffing about? I will not allow you to ruin my master's triumphant return.
I kind of went for a different feeling than Orochi because it's more ghosty, I feel like. / it's the Spider Queen. I have a girl voice, you know. It's a little bit more suited to that.
Hell yeah.
And it was a little bit more of my own voice and actually like doing the acting behind it, and I had a lot of fun with that. It was also just like that was the first point at which I started doing my own sound effects because partway through her speech you can hear like a hiss sound. It just kind of sounds like a and that's me. That's me doing that and like stretching it out. I know I kind of like slowed it down a little bit so that it stretches the hiss sound, and I added some echo on it, etc., and that was a huge challenge, but in the end I was like really proud of it.
Well, was a lot of the challenge figuring out how to do it? Did you kind of just like make stuff up as you went along and then eventually it just kind of worked, or did you already have an idea before you started?
I had a general idea of how I might want it to sound going into it, but I don't usually work with a whole lot of audio, so actually getting it to that point was all guesswork for me. It was all guesswork because like taking this Spider Queen as an example, I knew that I wanted it to sound like wispy. I wanted it to sound ghosty, a little bit more like you know, the seductive ghost type of voice. I tried my best, and I actually did the core voice first, and I was like, you know, it's make this sound really badass. Some hisses. So there I was sitting there for half an hour just kind of going into the mic and just sifting through them and layering them up and praying that one of them sounded good. So
it was very noticeable. It was a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I honestly can't think of another Let's Play that you've done in the past where you've done this much like audio work.
No, this was I think this was a first for me. There were times when I did mess with the audio a little bit, but never to this extent. This was like the most all in that I went with like acting and vocal effects and stuff like that. And like
that's awesome.
It kind of all came together with Ninetales, I feel like. Especially like the first time you see Ninetales. in the game. I almost feel like I shouldn't be talking about that, but anyone who's watching this video should have already like played / seen everything in.
Yeah.
It's like, so whatever.
I mean, this should be like, if somebody were to make a playlist, this should definitely be the last thing you watch on it.
Yeah, exactly. So, when you first meet Ninetales in like that temple in Ryoshima Coast, and he makes his grand entrance, that was probably the most proud that I was out of anything that I did, because it's kind of the same deal where it's like all of like it starts with like the evil Rao thing, and then it kind of builds up from there.
Yeah.
And I just started adding one effect, and then another effect, and then another effect, and then you see the actual Ninetales boss, and then I went all in at that point. I was just like, yeah, I'm really proud of this. This is super. This actually turned out really cool.
So, you have crept into my castle like a sneaky little mouse, have you?
And that was also another thing where I just like, I sat there for half an hour doing growlies into my microphone. Literally sat there for half an hour going growling into my microphone, because there was like a low rumble through that entire portion, and that's also me.
So I think I didn't add this question either. I have a lot of follow-ups I'm just suddenly having in my head. But this is something that I've also talked about in a previous episode where like Emil does a lot of the Toad voices. So how do you take care of your throat? Did you take any measures to make sure that you were taking care of your voice, your vocal cords, and making sure that this didn't like completely wreck you?
Just like,
let's
okay.
move on.
It's kind of like basic things like drink water. If you feel like your voice is getting tired, then take a break. But for me specifically, my voice is very used to talking for long periods of time, because I also stream, and that's 3 hours of straight talking by myself. And that's like the most talking and the most screaming in a span of time that I will ever do. And at this point I'm so used to doing that like doing Let's Play videos is by contrast much easier in that way, and just like keeping my voice ready and raring to go, because I can do like 4 episodes in a sitting and I'll be okay. And that's also because a lot of the time during Let's Plays, a lot of the time that's spent in it is things off screen. So like I'll be traveling from point A to point B, in which time I can take a sip of my drink, I can take a break if I want, I can just like do whatever grinding I need to do off screen and give myself that time to recuperate and then jump back into it. When it comes to like the voice acting, that was all done in post, so I had a fresh voice for all of that. So it's not, I've never had a point where I've really felt like my voice is being strained from any of it.
Right. So just being sure to like pace yourself and...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So going into video editing a little bit, what sort of video editing techniques, like we talked about going from point A to B, and obviously you're not going to show all of that, especially if it gets really repetitive. Yeah. So what other video editing techniques did you like to do specifically for Okami, and then how did you go about doing those?
One of them is actually the idea that I got from you, because we talked about like we had the other video talking about Okami going into it. Did we not? No, that was during
that was actually an off-the-cuff conversation from the last episode.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit afterwards, and you had mentioned that you wanted to do like the scroll effect for transitions and stuff. Yeah. And I was just like, oh shoot, that's cool. And then like 2 weeks later, maybe I hit you up on Discord, and I'm like, hey, so I saw what you meant about the scroll. Do you mind?
Yeah, And it's really funny because it kind of just like comes back to, and we probably talked about this during that Let's Talk episode, which probably will come out sometime this year. We were talking a lot about visual editing techniques, and the thing that always struck me was, I think I wrote a lot of my questions during your Donkey Kong Country Returns LP.
Yeah.
And you did this scrolling effect with the DK tie going from point A to B, which would be your transition.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
at the time, my editing techniques were like bare minimum. Like I did not know a lot. And I continuously saw that. I was like, how the fuck did you do that? Like, I know what it is now, and that's a painful process. But when I saw the scroll, I was like, that's simple. I can do that because it's one straight line. There's no point where you really need to cut any additional, like there's no additional cropping that you need to do. Just do the straight line and it will transition.
Right, yeah.
But all of this was because I was watching your stuff and being like,
Aww.
I want to do that. Like Okami was probably one of the first LPs because we had been doing them for quite a while at that point where I was like, okay, I really need to start flexing my muscle because I'm trying to learn all of this stuff because, you know, I'm just like the Midoriya just like looking at all of his favorite heroes and just like taking notes and just kind of be like, I want to be like them, so I need to figure out how the fuck they're doing
reference.
that.
I understand this reference.
So that was
Deku
me
baby.
For quite some time. Like I couldn't be a hero, so I was just going to take notes on everyone else doing what they were doing. So one day I could figure it out. And yeah, so I thought that was really, I was very touched when you wanted to use that effect.
Dude, it was a really good idea, and it worked perfectly. It was super handy to have, and it feels super natural, and like I just there was no other effect that would have fit as well as that. So like you hit it right on the nose.
Yeah, and honestly, like you really didn't have to even ask. Like I feel like if you had just done it, being like same idea, because like we have every time we're talking about this, like right now, it's kind of like, oh, you did that, I did that. So
yeah. But I legitimately did get that idea from you, so of course I wanted to be like, hey, so remember we were talking?
So no, that was actually like a proud moment for me. So I'm just gonna, weird flex, but okay.
Yay.
But were there any other like visual editing techniques that you went through with Okami and anything else?
Okami was a little bit lighter on the visual editing. It was mostly audio this time around, which is a switch up for me. But the only other thing that I can really think of that kind of threw me for a loop, well, I wouldn't really say threw me for a loop, and it was more like just something that I did. Entering and exiting battles, I ended up doing like this really seamless looking thing because Okami, when you go into the battle, it does like that puff of smoke, and then when you exit the battle, it does another puff of smoke. And so I'm like, wait, the first one is more like a blur effect, but it kind of goes really well together when you crossfade it. So it just looks like, if you do it right, it looks like Amaterasu is just like continuously running, and there's just like an explosion on screen, and that's all that happens.
You're just plowing through enemies.
Yeah, and so it took a little bit of like planning sometimes though, because if you watch closely, a lot of the time you'll notice that if at the end of a battle I'll just continue running forward, that's because when I'm running forward and I run into an enemy, if I decide to cut out that fight, then I want to continue running forward so it isn't jarring, so that like it isn't like Ami's running forward, flash, and then she's going backwards, So it was just little things like that.
Yeah, that was really smart that you like thought ahead like that. So moving forward, we have a couple more questions, just kind of like your thoughts and feelings about Okami. I think I just talking about the story, talking about things that happened during the Let's Play, outside of actual recording and editing.
Yeah.
So first off, what was it about Okami's story and like the characters that really resonated with you?
I mean, for one, you play as a freaking wolf, That's pretty cool. But no, I've always like had a really huge interest in like Japanese culture and Japanese legends and things of that nature, and Okami basically throws you into the middle of all of these ancient legends because a lot of it pulls from the legends that they have like in real life. I say real life loosely because they're legends, but
Folklore. Yeah.
it's like actual folklore that they have, and I thought that was super interesting. I didn't particularly go into much detail in my series just because I didn't want to get too stuck on like talking about it for too long, and I feel like if I have something like that in mind, I end up I have a hard time pacing things like that, and to me it's just like I feel like that pulls me out of the experience of the game a little bit if I have to be like, oh, but wait, this thing in real life, unless it's something like super interesting, then I'm like, yes, this, I must talk about this. But, yeah, I've always just had a really keen interest in like Japanese culture and Japanese history and their folklore, and Okami basically checks off every single checkbox.
Well, if you really wanted to talk about like the folklore behind a lot of the characters, there was that extra info series you made. So maybe that's a good idea for that.
Huh. You know what?
Grab out your textbooks and drop some knowledge.
Consider that. Yeah, we'll see.
It's a lot of background info, and a lot of the best way that I can put Okami is that it's a very anime interpretation of Japanese folklore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very anime.
Susanoo reminds me a lot of Hercule from Dragon Ball.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I love Susanoo. Susanoo's so good. I feel like the first arc of the game is probably my favorite after playing everything.
It's very strong.
It's very strong, and seeing Susanoo come full circle toward the end of it was just so cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of people make the comment that Okami is a game in 3 parts that sort of really ends after the first part.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Especially once you get to the end, like it gets so weird.
It does get pretty strange toward the end. It does. But the last arc is also really good though, because like I feel like the Oina as a tribe and as a setting is really cool.
Yeah, I kind of wish that they had touched a little bit more on it, because it's like, okay, well, this is a thing, but also we're going to talk a little bit more about the aliens part.
Yeah. Yeah, I do kind of wish that they had their own identity apart from like, aliens, but hey.
So moving on to the music, because that's a very big talking point for you. So what tracks from this game would you say are your favorite?
Oh, there are many. There's Ryoshima Coast. There's the Celestial theme. There's Webkir. There's Hana Valley. There's the final boss theme. There's Reset. But I think the song that really punches me in the stomach the most is probably the thank you version of Reset, which is the instrumental version that plays spoilers. The instrumental version that plays during the final boss when like Ami's all beaten down and everyone's sending her their prayers and stuff. That song punches me actually in the stomach. It was so That's probably my favorite song. But I can't listen to it without like getting super emotional, so I don't actually listen to it.
Your Let's Play was actually recognized by the official Okami social media account on Twitter.
Yeah!
Party emojis.
Party.
How did it feel to get that kind of recognition? And then do you feel like that really motivated you while working on the project?
Absolutely. Dude, like I just kind of died inside of like the best way possible. When I saw that, I was just like, "Oh my god. Holy crap." And like what blows my mind about it is that just like it's still basically at the top of their feed. Like, there's been a couple of posts since then, but, like, it's still basically right there. And I'm just like,
Well, wait, isn't
dream
it like
come true?
one of their only other posts is like your
Yeah,
cover?
because they don't. Oh, actually, you know what? Yes, you're right. That actually is their last post.
Oh my god. Do not search Okami on Twitter. Holy shit. That's a
Uh-oh.
lot of porn.
Oh, no. Oh, rip.
I forgot how much porn is just on Twitter.
Yiff, yiff.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think one of the other posts was just them talking about your reset cover, so.
Yeah, like, it's still, like, surreal to me because, like, I'm looking at their Twitter account now. I went to go check how far down it was, but it's, like, reset cover, post, retweet, post, and then my series after that. And I'm just like, that's very close. That's very close together. I'm just like, yes, Papa Okami. Thank you.
Good old Papa Kami.
Papa Kami, thank you.
My final question is something that I just kind of came up with spur of the moment, but very creative. You're asked to make the next game in the Okami series. What's his face? I'll edit in his name later. He comes up to you and he's like a bunch of expletives and then tells you you're in charge of Okami now because that's just how he rolls. What do you do? So what elements would you want to keep from previous games? What elements would you want to improve on? And then do you have any like original ideas that you would have for it?
Well, okay. Here, like, I love Okami, but it definitely has some weird issues that I'm just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that. I touched on a bit of them in like my series here and there because there are definitely things that just kind of strike me as really weird. Some of them would be things like, I wish there weren't quite as many reskinned things. Because later in the game, it's clear that they ran out of time on certain things because the Dragon Palace is a reskin of Sasa Sanctuary. Inside the Water Dragon is a reskin of Hana Valley. And it's just like, it was such a cool idea for an area that I'm really bummed out that they just used a reskin on it.
Yeah.
I feel like the first act of the game was probably the strongest. I mentioned that, but I feel like all of the rest of them were still good, but I feel like some of it, and especially the progression toward the Ryoshima coast part, were kind of like almost afterthoughts in a sense, because the pacing is really strange in some areas where just like you linger on certain parts for such a large portion of the game, and you finally get to the big culmination of like, yes, you're going into the water dragon that has been threatening you this entire time, and then it's just like, hello, it's a straight line.
Yeah.
It's some of those things are just really strange. I feel like I would improve on the dungeons a little bit. I would try to make the story a little bit more concise and focus a bit more on like the later characters, because you really get a feel for who Susanoo is, who Kushi is, and all of the early characters. You really bond with them, and you figure out like, oh, this is who everyone is. This is what they're like. I don't feel like you really have a lot of that later in the game. Like, you have figureheads, but you don't have characters that you really team up with and get to know.
Yeah, I think that really... So, my impression when you first find Yoichi, since he's also part of their history and their culture, that he would be like Susanoo number 2. And that just never really happens.
Yeah, he kind of just is doing his own thing. He's like not really a side quest, but just like a... Hello, do you want to get past this area? You have to interact with Yoichi for a second, you know?
Yeah. It's just kind of like, oh, hey, Yoichi, I know what that is. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like they could have done a little bit more with that. I would get rid of every single instance of Isun saying, "You hear that, Ami?" I
You
would
hear
get rid
that,
of all of
Ami?
it. I would get rid of all of it. Delete it. Just Control F delete. That's all you gotta do, and you would lose nothing of substance. Absolutely zero of substance, and it just makes me mad. Isu makes me mad. Sorry.
This game is rated T for teen, but we think kids might be playing it.
Oh my god. So yeah, as for like gameplay things, I would strengthen the battles. Cause you really just breeze through everything especially if you know what you're doing. And again, touching on reskins, a lot of the later enemies are reskins as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of
Most of
imps.
them are. I feel like after maybe the Gale Shrine, you start running into basically only reskins at that point. So it's basically the first act done over again. Just, with different designs.
It really seems like they kind of front loaded the game and then they're like, oh wait, we need to pump in like 15 more hours into this thing.
Yes, exactly. I just feel like they could have done a little bit more with the battle system, since you spend so much of your time battling, and probably balancing it to be a bit harder, because considering you can beat the Spider Queen in one cycle before she even has a chance to breathe.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having difficulty personally just because it was like my first time playing through it, but I think upon repetitive playthrough, especially since I think you fight the Spider Queen 3 times?
Yes.
Something like that. And then you fight
4.
Orochi about as many times as you... 4 times?
You fight her 4 times, yes, because you fight her once as a boss, and then every single Devil Gate trial has a bandit spider. So
yeah,
I
think I remember hearing that.
You fight the Spider Queen. You fight Orochi 3 times.
Yeah.
And you fight Crimson Helmet twice. And you fight... The only boss that you don't fight more than once is Lechku and Nechku. The boss rush... Yeah, Lechku and Nechku are not in the boss rush.
Interesting.
You only fight them once.
Yeah, you fight Orochi about as many times as you fight the Imprisoned.
Yep.
And
it's really sad because now Orochi gets such a bad rep now because everyone's like, wow, it's the worst. Well, I'm like, no, it's actually a really amazing fight. It's a really good boss fight. It's just that they reused it with like nothing changed about it. Except now he's made of gold. Ooh.
Yeah, I think it just becomes borderline tedious with some of the heads fighting you at the same time, or again, like, maybe I'm not the greatest video game player the world has ever seen, but hey, I'm not doing Let's Plays. But I always found that with the Orochi boss fights, that it's once you figured it out, it makes sense, and then figuring it out becomes a little bit of tedium, but then like doing it again, like I said, like the Imprisoned fights, like it's the same boss fight. You've just done it maybe about 5 hours ago, but having to do it again and again and again doesn't make you better at it. It doesn't make you like appreciate it more.
Yep.
So
theoretically for Okami, you could fight Orochi within like twice within the same hour, because you do it at the end of Ancient Kamiki, and then right after that you unlock well, I guess you do have to go through Webkir, so that is a thing. But like right after not Webkir, but the freaking Waoku Shrine. You go through Waoku Shrine, which is really short, but then you fight Orochi again right after that. So if you know what you're doing, you can fight Orochi twice. Literally one right after the other. And it's like, I don't know about that.
What about any like original ideas you would want to introduce?
Like, I would have to like put some serious thought into that, but what I've always wanted to see was the actual celestial plane. Like, I feel like there's a lot that you could do with that, because that's where Ami and Waka go. They go to the celestial plane, and I feel like it would be really interesting if you go up there and it's like in ruins or something and you have to fix it.
That would be like the setup for a 2.
Yeah, and like / you have like the Moon Tribe and stuff they're super ominous because Waka's just like, yeah, they all suck. And he's like from there. He's just like, yeah, my hometown sucks. Sorry about that. And then you both go off to the celestial plane and it's happily ever after. But wait, what if it's not happily ever after and like something terrible has happened to literally heaven, you know? So
Yeah.
That's what I would want to see.
Okay. Well, that's it. I'm out of questions. I got no follow-ups. I got no extra thing. I didn't think of anything while we were talking, you know?
Yay, it was
We're all
very
done.
thorough.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on and doing this. Hopefully this is a series I can continue on depending on who's doing what, and hopefully we'll get some interesting new things, like new editing concepts that we can just go over and just kind of shoot the shit about that. So I'm looking forward to doing more of these.
Me too. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me and talking about Okami. I feel like I took up a lot of time because I definitely have a lot to say about Okami.
I mean, really, look, here, all right, let me lay this out for you, okay? People watch my channel, but they don't listen to me. See, they want to hear what you have to say. And so if you just want to keep droning, droning is a really shitty word. If you want to keep talking,
I see.
Yeah, if you just want to like boil
I see, man. Okay, fine.
No,
fine,
but
if
if
you want to be that way.
No, but like if you just I want to hear more from you. That's the whole reason why we're doing this, right? Like I want to hear more from you, like what you have to say, learn more about your techniques and the things that you do. Okami was such a great example of this because a lot of the video or the audio editing and some of the video editing that you do, like there was a really cool like kind of update that we could do. So talk more about it.
Yay!
So.
Well, I'm glad to hear because like Okami took such a long time. It caught me off guard. I was expecting it to be maybe 70 parts, and then it ended up being 92, and then here we are. You know.
I honestly
Oops.
thought you just like breezed through it because it took me years to do it.
Dude, like I by the end of it, I love Okami, but by the end of it, I was just like, oh my god, this is taking me so long.
I don't want to do
also
anything
like
with a white dog ever again.
Yeah, pretty much. It was also just like at that point, I knew that the reset cover was coming, and so that was piling on the anxiety that I was feeling. I was just like half excitement and half being terrified that, oh my god, we're getting close to that. Oh my god, what am I gonna do? You know? So it was kind of a
do I delay more episodes?
Because I hit episode 70 and I was like, man, you know what? I'm not even close to being done yet. When am I gonna be done? And then from there it was just like building anxiety up until like the finale. I was just like, oh boy, here I am.
It all worked out for the best.
Yeah, it turned out really well.
So, thank you again for joining me here. For all of you listening, thank you for making it this far. I know I always say it's going to take like 40 minutes and then it ends up taking like an hour and a half. So
I've come to expect that. No worries.
Yeah. I mean, I come to expect, I'm like, oh, it'll take about 60 minutes. And then 2 hours later, it's like, well, shit.
See, that's why you say 40 minutes. So that way it takes an hour and some change. Because then if you say it'll take an hour and some change, then it'll take 2 hours.
Yeah, maybe that's my problem.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to everyone for listening. And hopefully we'll do this again shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night. Goodbye.
Sleep tight.
Don't let the bed bugs bite.
Bed bugs bite.
Like they did for me.